Hi guys, welcome to the Business and Remote Work podcast brought to you by Wishup. I'm your host Crispino, along with co-founder of Wishup, Mr. Nilesh Rangwani, and today we're joined by Deborah. Deborah is a fractional leader, coach, author, and host of a podcast, The Drop-In CEO. So welcome to the show, Deborah. It's nice to have you here with us.
Oh, and I am so grateful that you've invited me for this conversation. I love the topic of crisis management. Hopefully we can impart some great insights for your audience.
I'd like to say thank you, Deborah. Thanks for joining us this early in the morning. It's 8:30 a.m., so thank you for taking the time.
No, my pleasure. I'm an early bird.
So guys, Deborah is also an expert in crisis management. And we have dedicated this entire episode to pick apart her brains so that we can learn more about how an organization should handle a crisis situation. So without any further ado, let's get started with the podcast. So for the first question, Deborah, I'd like to ask you, what exactly is crisis management and why is it important for businesses to have a crisis management plan in place?
So I really appreciate that question, but let me just start by saying crisis management is simply the failure of leadership or an organization to look at the landscape and their business and all interested parties and effectively identify what those risks are ahead of time and plan for the future to simply prevent or what to do to mitigate the impact of a crisis. I find so many leaders, especially large companies, but even the small ones, and the small ones, I want you to listen, is that we as leaders, the company, the entity, your employees, your clients depend on you to have the discipline to, as part of your business planning, look at what are all the possible risks in your business and put together a plan either to prevent risks from happening or crisis happening, or what can you do to lessen or mitigate when they actually have. So while crisis management is what you do in response to a negative impact, such as a pandemic or economic issues or environmental or political, it really comes down to lack of leadership and proper planning. And I find that the leaders that are highly aware, that realize this, are disciplined to say, I need somebody to maybe come into my organization and look at all the possible inputs from an HR perspective, financial, institutions, regulatory, et cetera. And let's look at that and identify everything. And I might even say aliens or things that could never, ever happen. So often as leaders, we say, oh, that could never happen to us, aliens having an impact on our business. But on the other hand, if we haven't identified it and then said the occurrence is really low, but what happens if an alien comes? Maybe we have to ask them what are their thoughts on business, and we might even learn something. But putting that aside, crisis management is the lack of good planning and discipline as a leader. But when you have a good crisis management plan, you come out far ahead of all of your competition. When you put together the plan in place and people understand it, there is constantly a change or things changing. But when a leader has a plan in place, they can respond to it, not react, but respond responsibly. Your people and your clients will appreciate it, and you will come out of the crisis unscathed or less scathed and have a better result and get back on track to do the work that you're meant to do. So very critical. So many leaders lack the discipline or foresight to even do it.
Wow. Now, since you explained it so well, I feel even I am guilty of not planning for crisis in advance because we are new entrepreneurs. So we probably will need to learn from this. Yeah.
But if I could respond to that, so the mere fact that you say, I wasn't aware. A leader first has to have the awareness that maybe there's something I need to do a little bit different. And then even in the work that you do in service to clients, and while you do provide resources so they can do the work, I feel what you do is not just fill a job position, but you think strategically, okay, is this person going to serve your needs now? Or are they flexible? Are they agile? Could they move into different roles? You as an organization supporting those small and medium-sized leaders could potentially participate in that crisis mitigation or prevention, getting the owner to think more holistically on, okay, we'll serve your needs now, but what might you need in the future? So we can already start planning. That's what you can do as an organization. And that's what I always try to do when I help my leaders, not just what can I do now, but let's think, how do we make sure the future is secure as well?
Yes, and especially in these times, it makes so much more sense because we have seen like two crises back to back. So for example, a virus and then a war. And in an organization like ours, which benefited a little bit from the virus, let's say because of the remote work. The crisis was what happens when people actually stop working from home and start going to offices. How will it impact our business model? We never thought about that. So that was another crisis. It all makes sense. Yeah.
But perfect. And again, we did talk about how do crises happen. It's due to poor planning, but I probably didn't talk as much of like what to do when you're in a crisis.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that they do happen. I will tell you, yesterday, every single meeting I had was a crisis. I will tell you at the end of the day, leaders need to have at least some self-discipline to not react to what's happening, because it sends off bad vibes to the people around you. Sometimes a leader needs to be quiet and reflective and take in what is happening and give themselves a little bit of time before they come forward and help their teams respond to a new situation, a loss of a client, supply chain issue, what have you. A leader has to have certain characteristics and behaviors to manage people and calm people during a crisis. So I just gave you a little bit about how to manage it, but I could probably provide some stories later on. But thank you so much for the question.
So I mean, before Crispino jumps in, sorry. So I am actually very excited about this topic. I would love to know, how did you get into this field? Because I've never heard about this field. I don't know any other professional who does this. I mean, personally, I don't know. Maybe it's just the economy is different here. So how did you get into this? Would love to know that.
Well, it's interesting. I think crisis management found me because it's not that I created any crises, but I find that I, over time, most important, like in the last 15 years, as I was in the flavor and fragrance industry, I was moving up the ladder in the area of quality and operational excellence. So how could I help operations be better, faster, cheaper, and safer? So I was always a problem solver. A problem would happen. We'd have a customer complaint. I would roll up my sleeves, rally the team, and we would get through the data and information to ultimately find the root cause, make the client or customer whole, and then figure out how do we do to prevent it. So it became part of my training. What I will say is, though, is that out of this training, and then I'll get to how did I get into real crises management, was sometimes we as individuals were good at our technical craft, politics, English, science, engineering, etc. But I honed my skill in being able to listen to the chaos and all the data and information. People will come to the table. The sky is falling. We lost this customer. The equipment is down. A lot of information, and people don't have clarity in those moments. But in problem solving, one of the first steps is to get very, very clear on, wait, what is the problem we're having right now? What is the impact to the customer? And get very clear on what, where, when, why, and how often or how many. That discipline in my training, able to hear that and then reframe back to the team, guys, hold on a second. I know you got a lot of information, but is this what we're really going after? Is this the problem? And when I slow things down for the team can think clear and say, yes, that's the problem that we're actually going after. I said, great, we're okay now. Now let's look at the data and see what do we need to do next. That skill then brought me into places where I had organizations where they were crumbling, they weren't performing, people were leaving. They brought me in. Deb, can you fix this? So I would go in and assess the landscape, see what was missing, fix the initial issue, staffing, alignment, working with clients to get us to a place of stability. And then I said, I never want to be in that place again, because it's a lot of stress. It takes a lot of energy, not only to calm myself down, but also to keep calm with the people in my voice and how fast or slow I talk. That's critical, is how we manage the people going through a crisis, because the worst thing you can do is wear the people out, to burn them out. We need to bring them through to calmer places. So I did that over and over again. I brought an area that wasn't making any money to finally producing results, to having poor quality, to moving it up to a place where we're starting to perform and customers were coming to us asking what we were doing. My training and experience led me to a place where now when I work with small and medium-sized companies, I've been there, I've seen this, I know how to treat it, and it's just a skill set that I'm either drawn into crises, I help the business owner get through it, and also how do we stabilize and sustain the organization. So it is a niche area that I fill But I find it's very needed by some small and medium-sized owners, because if they haven't properly planned, I can partner with them to either fix it quickly and get out of the crisis and be able to set up plans so we never be there again.
Yeah, you spoke about speaking calmly. Like I can already feel that, the way you're talking, I'm already feeling a little calm about this conversation. So yeah, Crispin, over to you.
It's the behavior that we want others to model. So yes, Christina.
Yeah. So I had two questions, Deborah, based on what you just said. Two-part question. So first thing was, how do you have the knowledge that helps you get a holistic view? Because when you're dealing in a crisis situation, you're talking about policies, government regulations, HR, the business environment. So how do you have all this knowledge, holistic view to to deal with the situation? And second part of the question would be, okay, you can answer the first, then I'll ask you the second one.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. As leaders, sometimes we hold ourselves back. We say, well, geez, I don't know anything about regulatory. I know a little bit about HR. I just know operations over here. It's one of those things that when you come into a new role, you got to make sure you get to know all the resources, have a one-on-one with every functional department to get to know who are your go-to people. That early work as a leader versus, hey, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and this is what we want to do. We miss a critical step in understanding. So when faced with a crisis, the immediate thing that I go to is like, who are the subject matter experts, such that when we bring them into the room and are dealing with the crisis, I've got the views, I've got the board of advisors, all the experts. And then as an engineer, I process what are the most critical things that they're saying. And I get a picture of what the issue is. I validate. They say yes. And then I say, okay, what would you do? What would you do? What would you propose that we do? So I pull a lot from those resources. So getting a very good resource management pool of people you can draw upon is what helps you be able to assess and provide proposals going forward.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And on average, like I know it's going to be based on case-to-case situation, but
right.
Based on your experience, how long has it taken for you to enter into a crisis and pull the company or spin it around?
Interesting. Well, he got to work really, really quick. But, if I just had to think in general, I mean, I can reflect upon a crisis where there was issues with eroding customers, like customers were not satisfied with the level of performance. So I would say within the first 3 weeks, you get all the information you need and you immediately start having touch points with the people that are maybe not receiving the right quality or service of what you do. That immediate poise of touching those people that could negatively impact your business or positively is absolutely critical. I'm not thinking about what procedures we need to fix. I'm not thinking about cross-training or any of that. Human connection, because customers or clients are going to remember how you made them feel or how you made them whole, or simply acknowledging them versus hiding away somewhere and hoping it'll go away. Because then the customers will trust you and say, okay, we'll get through this together if you had a good relationship to begin with, and they'll have patience while you're trying to figure out what caused the issue and come back. Typically, then I would say within 2 to 3 months after those initial 3 weeks, you can start reestablishing trust because you've looked inside to your internal processes. You've looked where we maybe haven't set people up for success. And it simply takes time to close those gaps and then retrain the people on the new tools or processes so that then the customers will feel, okay, I don't think we're going to have problems anymore. People are delivering on time. I'm getting the right quality. It takes time for ultimately the customer to realize the improvements you've made in response to a crisis. But typically 3 weeks, roll up your sleeves, fix the customer, and then about a 3-month time frame to get to a sense of calm and get us out of crisis to a place of control. That's what I'm feeling. Yeah.
I have a question. Sorry, Crispino. So you mentioned a few examples right now, Deb. So I would love to know what are the most common places where the crisis arise from in a business, in a typical business. I mean, if you have an answer to that.
Yeah, there's one particular one that's pretty challenging, is that we may provide a quality product or service, but there are specifications, there are standards that we design we ship to, and on occasion we cannot deliver 100%, but the customer might not realize it, that it's not 100%. And sometimes there is such pressure on a business to meet certain delivery dates, and because then we get certain sales compensation, we reach our sales goals, that sometimes people say, well, it didn't quite meet that, quality standard, but nobody's going to notice. It's not going to impact. The risk is really low. And we approve these things and we ship them to the customers. It's especially in the area of safety. Again, we train professionals like myself and others to alert people when there's potentially safety issues. And often we either don't have a voice or the business might not listen. And then those professionals get frustrated and we ship something to a customer and then it negatively impacts the customer because that 1 in 100,000 chance actually impacted somebody. Then that's when businesses go into litigation. They lose millions and millions of dollars in revenue, lost loyalty and retention of customers. And had they maybe taken the time, maybe lost a few sales to identify or fix the issue before taking a chance, those are leaders that probably regret their decisions. And I have been in some quality decisions where we had to contact the customer, bring back that product or service. It was challenging because the customer was not happy with us. But when we went with the team to explain what happened, why we did it, and why we took the decision to not keep the product or service in the marketplace, well, they were very upset with us because it did inconvenience them. They thanked us. They thanked us in the end that we made those decisions and that they would have done the same. So it takes a lot of courage as a leader to take the right decisions and try to mitigate risk. It is far worse if the risk actually manifests, and then you really have to deal with the much bigger issues. So I think leaders need to heed that. Sometimes we have to make those hard decisions such that we don't have a major, major crisis. You'll be in a little bit of chaos right now, but think about what if bad things really happen. So I've been there. It's not comfortable at all.
Yeah. So Deborah, but what are the 5 most common types of crisis that you see in businesses?
I'm just going to go off the top of my head. So crisis management, one of them I feel is failed succession planning. Sometimes a small and medium-sized business is very flat. You have the senior leader and then 3 or 4 subject matter experts. Sometimes that business model works for a long time, but as they get more senior, maybe the workforce gets older, sometimes those people unfortunately leave. And if we fail to cross-train and prepare the next generation, it destabilizes the organization. The next area of failure is cross-training. So maybe you have a lot of knowledge workers and they're very, very good. And when they perform, everything is good, but we fail to look at the risk of what if one of those knowledge workers left. If we fail to cross-train and build capability within those ranks, we expose ourselves to errors, service issues, and our customers feel that. So that's 2. I'll keep going. Again, making bad decisions in violating their principles. Some customers or clients will say, safety first, quality second, and then service and cost later. And I find time and time again, people on the front line, they're under extreme pressure to ship their products or services, take the decision, well, the quality's okay, they won't notice. And we leave individuals vulnerable to make bad decisions because we have not set the precedence to say, no, you can stop the line if it's a safety or quality issue. That's a problem that leaders might talk the talk, but they don't demonstrate that behavior because they're putting pressure on their people. We need to empower the people such that, because even a small issue can really, really hurt a small and medium-sized business. Failure to look at supply chain issues, people issues, so supply of people, supply of materials. We think that we'll single source, we've got our favorite vendors, our favorite resource, nothing will happen. And when we don't dual source things, they say, how could this have happened to me? They are victim to it. So strategic sourcing and having multiple supplies is critical. And really it's always a backup plan. I would say IT might be another one. We depend so much on technology, as we today have had some issues, and Crispano had an excellent backup plan so that we're recording this. So I think a lot of leaders should probably look at their infrastructure, because when it's working, it's great. And if you have one breakdown, it is catastrophic to the business and impacts your customers. So 5, and that's just 5. There are many, many more.
Thank you for answering that. Another question on that. So, when should the business leaders contact you? I mean, during the crisis, when they are in crisis, or how do
Okay.
they anticipate that they should contact you already? Yeah.
All right. So this is my public service announcement. Yes, call me during a crisis. I will partner with you. I won't frown on you. I won't judge you. We will get through this together, even if it means we're a little frustrated with where we're at. But please, please don't call me during a crisis. Call me when things are going well.
Yeah.
If things are coming along, then as a leader, let the operations do its thing. Let the, line workers do their thing. Start thinking about risk management, crisis management. What should you do now to set yourself up for success? What I find really is more people call me during a time of chaos. And when I talk about these terms, I have this crisis scale. When you're in crisis, it's a number 5. You don't want to be there. You're losing customers. Chaos is you're not losing customers. That's a number 4, but you're starting to feel uncomfortable, like something is going to break soon. A number 3 is you're in control. I love working with leaders that everything is under control. Let's look for the future. I love working with leaders that have a continuous improvement mindset. That's a number 2. And a number 1 is that you have a competitive advantage where your customers are coming to you and asking you, how do you do that? I'd love to learn. Typically, my clients, small business owners, will contact me when they're a place of chaos. It's getting noisy. They're not able to do their regular job. They're having to go down into the business and manage it, or they don't know how to get out of it. And when they feel uncomfortable, please call me. That's when I can partner with you and get you to feel calm and calm the business down, and then set it up for the future.
Yeah, got it. Over to you, Christina.
Yeah, so I had a question, Deb. So, I mean, based on what you've told us so far, it seems like a very stressful and challenging job that you do, right? Just today, I had 2 minor crises, and I had my team members call me and like in complete panic mode. And it wasn't difficult, but like just at my role, because I manage so many different aspects of marketing, eh, there are crises in every department. So when you have so much of information coming at you, like how do you process it, and how do you reset and deal with the next one, is what I want to ask you.
Yeah, so this is probably the toughest skill to learn. And we are human. At times we might react like, oh, how did this happen? And it's okay. Just know that sometimes we will slip up and not always be professional. But I think one of the things we have to do is slow down. I actually had a conflict yesterday where I was trying to set up a new program, and I found out there was another stakeholder that had a completely different idea of what we're supposed to do, and they were going forward with it without me. And I internally had a lot of stress because I thought I was supposed to be the leader. And what I did was, instead, I slowed it down and I simply thanked them. I acknowledged the situation. Okay, it's obvious we have a difference here. I appreciate you filling me in on your perspective. I don't think we can solve the issue now, but please keep me included in this, and I'd love to be able to help evolve this going forward. We as leaders, when faced with these crises, first need to slow down, calm, and be calm and breathe. Just say, okay, I understand. I don't have a solution right now. Let me come back to you. We need to slow it down. And I will tell you, a walk, going out for lunch, maybe going to another meeting, laying on the couch for just 5 minutes. I just calming the energy and our chemistry down. You then start reflecting on, well, what was the positive? I'm glad they brought that to me ahead of time because it could have gotten a lot worse. Start seeking the positive and then say, okay, what can I do now? What guidance can we do right now to fix this? Should I call a meeting or what have you, knowing you haven't solved the issue? And then later, when time has passed, you're able to solve it. So I just knowing that you have the power to slow it down, take a breath, take a moment for yourself, come back when you are ready to respond. Don't worry about hurrying it up because we might react versus responding responsibly. And I'll also just know this is me. The next day, every one of these issues is going to be resolved. Just know that 24 hours is going to yield a different result, and that onto itself is calming. I don't know what it is. It's something in the universe. I had a terrible day yesterday. Every single meeting I had a glitch. And I calmed down at the end of the day and I just accepted it. And I said, tomorrow, everything's going to be fixed. And today, right now, we fixed our technology. That's a good thing. And everything today. So it's just knowing it will work out. It's that confidence and slowing it down. It doesn't feel good in the moment, but just know you will get through this and the solutions will reveal themselves. Don't try to force it.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Yeah, thanks for that answer. It's already reassuring me, Nilesh, that everything is going to be fine.
Yes.
It's
Awesome.
just the universe challenging you and playing games with you and seeing how you react, because it's, other than that, life would be kind of boring.
True.
I have a question which is a different question, not on the same topic. So you got a chance to experience virtual assistant from Wishup in a very indirect way through one of our clients. So how was your experience like?
I appreciate that. First of all, what I really appreciate is that these knowledge workers are so smart, so educated, and so articulate, and also seeking clarification to understand me as an individual and what I'm looking for. There's this critical thinking, this way of processing information and articulating. It's just very refreshing. I think there's just a need to be just understood and seeking to understand. My initial experiences are very good. And then I also come to find that it's not about just doing the work, but I find also they're very talented as critical thinkers. So I might say, hey, I need this to be done, but they'll come back in a respectful way. What do you think about this? Or, I was thinking about this. Could we do it this way? And I appreciate that intellectual dialogue because I don't have all the answers. I can make a proposal, but when they come back, it's like, okay, I have a value added resource. It's like, oh, wow. Okay, I can trust them. If they make a decision on their own, I can trust them. So it's just this higher level of skill and critical thinking that I sincerely appreciate with these resources. Thank you.
Nice. That's very good to know.
Yeah.
Deb, I'd like to ask you: is there any challenging case study or any situation that you've been in that you've actually managed to pull out the best result? Like anything that comes to your mind?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of crisis. It's pre-crisis management. I, as a quality leader, had to incorporate a major initiative. And when you're working with different locations around the U.S. that have different cultures, it is really, really hard to say, here, you're going to do this, when they have to deal with people issues and service issues, et cetera. And if I hadn't changed my leadership, I would have been in crisis because I would not have been able to tell upper leadership, hey, we move forward with this initiative. I soon learned that to prevent a crisis, I need to look at all the different people and cultures within my region and ask them questions about what are their challenges and what would work best for them in customizing an initiative to suit their needs. When you enter into a conversation with stakeholders and understand what problems that you can solve, then somewhere in between you can solve their problem and move forward their initiative. So I would say in that situation, when I found I had to customize the solution for everybody, people then appreciated me partnering with them, not forcing another initiative down and getting a poor result, but then ultimately being a valued resource to them being pulled in. Okay, we got this done. What's the next thing that you need us to do in order to move forward? So when I talk about a case study, I, as a leader, came in with a mindset of, I got to prevent a crisis. This is going to be challenging, but how can I change my ways in order to move forward a critical initiative? Had I not done that, I could have gone into crisis. We might not have improved the quality in the region, and I would have had big issues from the higher up. So I think as a leader, sometimes we have to customize our approach to avoid a crisis. One size does not fit all, especially even with clients or customers. You may have your approach or your process, but being agile and customizing it will always lead to a successful solution. If you try to say, here's how you need to do it, and it just doesn't fit with their model, you will put an organization into crisis. So it wasn't the perfect example of how did I mitigate or how did I deal with a crisis, but that's one way I can mitigate a crisis before it actually happens is careful planning, forethought, and how can I make it work for the different interested parties.
I have one question, probably my last question.
Sure.
So, since this is so new for me and probably also for Crispino, we would love to know how many people in this world do this job and can call themselves expert at crisis management. Because is it a common role? But I don't think so. It's a common role. So, how many people do you think in the world do this?
Probably thousands, but what I would say is they're hiding behind other titles. You are right. When I look around on LinkedIn, I don't see anybody, hardly anybody in their headline, crisis management or chief crisis officer, because obviously you're trying to avoid it. It's almost like we're ignoring it. But you will find they're business advisors, they're consultants, they're COOs, chief operations officers. Those people will know what to do in a crisis, but they don't advertise it. But on my website, it's like, hey guys, I know you're all having a crisis, so I'm putting it out there. I do put it in my headline, crisis management. Now I am a fractional leader. I am the drop-in CEO. I'm the drop-in CEO first, but a fractional leader can come in during a time of crisis and put it out there. So I would say there's probably thousands of business consultants that probably can do that, but I think they avoid that work. They would rather come in and say, here's how I can improve your business. They shy away from the messy work. So I would say good luck trying to find us, but you know what? You know one, the drop-in CEO.
Absolutely. I think our clients would love to know that there is one that we know of. And maybe they can call you whenever they are in crisis or before that. Yeah.
Before that, please. And just know I have worked internationally. Again, it went in my corporate career. I've been all over the world. In my private business, I have also worked in your region in Singapore. So I know what it's like to understand and work with different cultures and provide solutions for those business leaders that work within their own framework and their culture.
Yeah. No, but lucky for us, all the hundreds of our clients are based in the US. So,
Okay. No, that's good. No, and that's a good thing. So yeah, not many of us.
Amazing. I think now, Nilesh, there's I remember when I was doing my MBA, we had this as a very important subject, crisis management, like a whole subject dedicated to it. So I think maybe not in India, but overseas, at least in America, Australia, there is a lot of focus on crisis management.
I mean, what I will tell you is I do know a few. I think I know one person with a crisis management institute. It's born out of, there's a lot of quality management systems standards in the operations and quality world. There's an ISO 9001 international standard. And that standard used to be about, if you can follow your procedures and produce good quality, we're going to give you a certificate. And over the years, it evolved to continuous improvement, serving customers, to a risk management model. And so through that training and the helping clients achieve those certifications, there is a framework in there to identify risk, to mitigate a crisis, because you don't want to impact your customers. So I do there are a lot of people that work in the area of risk management. That's where we should be working, not crisis management.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Wonderful. This was very insightful. I mean, I learned a lot today, Crispino.
And I appreciate this. You guys, this is actually the first time I've ever been interviewed. A lot of people want to understand my leadership journey, my insights, about leadership. What are young leaders missing? How do I help leaders? Technical issues that I've had. But crisis management, I applaud you for bringing this forward, because not enough people are talking about this. Crisis management, risk management, and that too could be something that you obviously as a service provider can talk to your clients about, but just know there are people out there such as me that could at least give some friendly advice and insights to start thinking about what can we do to mitigate a crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time, Deborah, today. It was amazing having you on the show. And I'm sure our clients will enjoy this podcast when we put it out there in the form of reels and the whole 9 yard. But thanks once again for sharing your knowledge. And thank you for coming onto the show.
It's my sincere pleasure to share my insights and also work with Wishup, a great organization. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Deborah. So I'll see you next time then.